and this is plain spoken. I'm kind of under the weather, and I knew it'd be easier just to live stream rather than record this separately and edit it, and then I tried to make it all work. So forgive me. I knew a lot of people were concerned about this topic of additional churches and conferences leaving the United Methodist Church. And it's something that I've spent a lot of time trying to understand and keep track of. There are probably some people who know more about it than I do, but I thought I would do my part just to make sure that folks know where things currently stand, as much as I'm able to convey that. So this is done after the general conference concluded in Charlotte last month. That was just such an ill-fated time for conservatives and traditional Christianity or authentic Christianity. There have been statements from different bishops and conference leaders saying that that the time of people leaving is over. The disaffiliation is over, and that is being shown to be false. It is not over. There are many churches and conferences still leaving. Of course, the biggest one is Côte d'Ivoire. Um, and I figured I'd go ahead and start off by just showing a map here. This is a map generated by the United Methodist Church, and it's several years old at this point. But this is the Ivory Coast here, where you see that six and the mouse moving right there. Had 1.2 million members in it. There have also been statements from Zimbabwe, although they haven't left yet. Kenya, Ethiopia left last year. Rwanda has left. Burundi, maybe. But this is African Methodism regionally, but it doesn't reflect membership. So Ivory Coast, this little region right here, had 1.2 million members. Nigeria, we're going to talk about here in a minute. So Nigeria is messy. Nigeria is where I've interviewed Bishop Johanna, interviewed Andy Emmanuel, and Absalom Nuhu. And getting good information out of Nigeria has been a significant issue that has frustrated many people, including yours truly. So the big development this week. Well, let's talk about this real quick. This is no, this is the United Methodist stats from 2022. It reports that in the United States jurisdictional conferences there were 5.4 million members, and then in Africa, Asia, Europe, and Central conferences, 4.5 million members. So we don't know. We know how many churches have left. Fully a third of the United Methodist churches have either left or closed and been bought back. Now, how many members are associated with those churches, that's going to be known after annual conferences this year, I think. But I suspect they've lost a third of their membership, which would be, I don't know, 1.8 million members, 1.7. Did I do my math correctly? Maybe. It could be more. It could be up to half. We'll see. But within the central conferences, we already see, if they were at 4.5 million before, then losing 1.2 million just from Côte d'Ivoire, that's like more than a quarter of the figure that they have there. So there's a lot of so within the U.S. is one thing, within central conferences is another. The central conferences are outside of the continental U.S. So Côte d'Ivoire, of course, here's an article published on it last week. It's not from a denominational resource. The denomination, to my knowledge, hasn't put out a proper article, but I've put out an ask to interview someone from the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, about the context there, why they chose to leave, if they're going to go through paragraph 572. I have seen an article saying that the United Methodist bishops are going to put them through that process if need be. But one of the things that people don't necessarily know is that here in the U.S., they are going to continue to allow, some annual conferences are going to continue to allow churches to depart in groups for some time. This is South Carolina, and they just had their annual conference where they voted to close 112 churches and then give them back to the congregations. So there's been a series of episodes in South Carolina that I'm not going to pretend to know from the inside. I know that There's been one congregation in particular, Berlin, that feels like the conference has been very dishonest and manipulative in the midst of all this. But even so, it looks like 112 churches have been able to get out. I'm also aware Holston Annual Conference has allowed them to continue engaging in a process to disaffiliate. And there are probably a few other annual conferences that are allowing this to go on. So this is belying these statements from bishops and other conference officials saying that that disaffiliation season is over, that nobody's leaving. Right now, everybody's not everybody. A huge number of people are running for the door. And at the close of this live stream, I will talk to congregations that are in annual conferences in America that are not allowing disaffiliation. But for right now, uh, it's worth looking internationally at what's going on to figure out, where the sentiment is. Who's taking crazy pills here? Was it traditionalists like me who were taking crazy pills that like we were all this fear over changes of sexual morality and anthropology? Uh, is that really just not as big a deal? And I was being hysterical and bigoted, or was the progressive left of the denomination taking crazy pills, thinking that the majority world United Methodists would stand for this, as well as like normal people that are not in crazy leftist cities in America? And it seems to me, at least, that the lefties were taking crazy pills, and right now they're getting a dose of medicine for sobriety. I don't know what's like they've been. Do you know what Narcan is? It's like when you do oh heck, what's the drug that is coming over the border from China that is like killing people left and right? The way to wake them up is to spray this Narcan up their nose, and that blocks these receptors in their brain. And that's what I feel like is happening to them. But whenever you deal with fentanyl, that's what it is. When you deal with fentanyl addicts and you actually hit them with Narcan and wake them up from that high, a lot of them will like attack people who did it because their high was so exquisite. And that's what I think is going to continue to happen in the United Methodist churches. You got these druggies that are just high on their own supply, and they think that they're on the right side of history and that everybody's going to be basically okay with it. And what you're actually seeing is the complete demolishing of this huge structure that was built over the course of over a century, really. Even though the denomination began in 1968, it began with resources that were accumulated before that. So it's simultaneously very concerning to see that people who are, drunk on power, drunk on worldly ideology, I don't know, can't reckon with the situation. They did this. They made this decision with eyes wide open. They organized everything in the lead up to General Conference, knowing that there would be some fallout. But I really don't think that they knew how big and bad it was going to be. I don't think they had any idea that well, I know in my own former conference, they only thought 3 or 4 churches were going to leave, and in the end, almost 150, I think, left, maybe more. I've already put so much in the rearview mirror, but the thing is, they had no idea how many American churches would want to leave, and then I think what they anticipated internationally was all this American money has been flowing out to them, and they want that money. They've become dependent on that money, and so, of course, they're going to stay in order to keep getting that money. And they don't understand people whose faith is more important to them than money and wealth. It was in my former annual conference. There was a conference official, still high up in the conference structure, made a Facebook post several months ago saying, just so silly that all these churches chose to disaffiliate. We've got all this money that was going to college scholarships that now none of those kids in those churches can apply for anymore. And the implicit thing being, that they were stupid to turn their back on free money. And that's exactly the point for traditionalists is you can't buy our faith, and what you'll see a lot of Africans at this point saying is Africa is not for sale. Yes, you have money to offer. It is not worth the cost of our souls. Jesus warned that you could gain the whole world, but if your soul is forfeit, then you have lost. So it's better to give up everything this side of heaven for the sake of Christ rather than sell your soul for worldly riches. And I appreciate it's not just Africans that are witnessing to that. It's a huge percentage of Americans. Even right now, I'm under the impression that there's probably 1,000 churches still within the United Methodist Church that want out in the United States. So the next bit about Nigeria, it's interesting. It's more interesting if you know the players. So there's Bishop John Wesley Yohana, who leads outright 3 of 4 districts in his episcopal area in Nigeria. Nigeria is I thought it was the biggest Central Conference, but maybe Cote d'Ivoire is because that's 1.2. And there's disagreement just in the stats on how many people are in Nigeria. So here, this is the official Nigeria Episcopal area page. It says that there are a million members. There are more than 1 million members of the UMC across 52 districts. Okay, so it says a million there, but then when you look at this article written by Tom Lambrecht, he says they only reported under 500,000 members in 2016. So that's a huge disparity right there. How many people are represented in this? They recently put out this resolution here saying the UMC Nigeria held a special session on June 1st, standing on true biblical doctrine, and they resolved and voted to leave the UMC pending the determination of litigations. That's made the rounds. That's been posted on Chris Ritter's website and everything. I've talked to 2 people in Nigeria now who say they did not take a vote on this. It was announced that that was the decision they were going, but it is not quite right, or not right at all, to say that they took a vote on this, which is crazy to me because the statement put out, this is a statement put out by Andy Emmanuel, which, if you remember, Andy, he was the one, he put it on. Here's the thing that's screwy about this. He put it on like official letterhead of the annual conference out there. He is no longer serving in an official capacity for the annual conference. He went rogue over a year ago. There was a disciplinary process removing him from the office. He's been leading an open rebellion against John Wesley Yohana. At this special called conference, he and his crew were invited to come and have reconciliation, and supposedly he showed up with some thugs that had knives ready to start stuff. So I wasn't there. I can't say that it happened for sure, but it's been screwy and messed up for a long time. Andy Emmanuel, of course, was at General Conference and spoke on the floor of General Conference several times, often beclowning himself um, in favor of things for the institution. Ever since he got back over to Africa, he's been lying publicly, saying that the denomination did not make any decisions that were favorable towards LGBTQ agenda stuff. So, I mean, the guy is notoriously habitually dishonest. He's a problem. But in this case, he put out this statement where he says that the fact that they put out this resolution is false. And in this case, Andy Emmanuel seems to be telling the truth. Now, does that mean that Andy's a good guy? No. Andy has said and done way too many things that are just a huge problem. He should not be he's going to stay UMC no matter what. He's running for bishop. He wants to be a bishop of that area. If the United Methodist Church leaves him as bishop, it's going to be carnage there. It's just going to be a huge joke. But even so, I don't know why John Wesley Yohana, Bishop Yohana, and his people have let the international community think that there was a vote taken when there wasn't a vote. And so I still have yet to make sense out of this. I really do think that Nigeria probably will leave the United Methodist Church, whether it has a million members or 500,000 members. It's going to, either way, significantly deplete that number here, whether it's, just between Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria. At the high point, you could be losing 2.2 million members out of that, which would be almost half of the international representation. Also, I should remind you, because of Odell Horn pointing to this, according to these numbers, Central Conference representation went down. The actual number of members already went down, such that they are going to be reported as a minority again at the next General Conference, which just seems screwy. The whole thing seems screwy, and I don't know how much of it is American record keeping. There's so much of this that is not known. What is known is there's going to be a huge reduction of the denomination. Probably, I mean, at the next General Conference, the denomination is going to be at, here's my less than half its strength as at this general conference. They will have lost half of what they have, probably. Internationally speaking, domestically speaking, so many people are walking away, and they're going to continue to walk away. So the final bit to this segment that I said I would do is for those of you who are in local churches that are not happy in the United Methodist Church. If you're happy in the United Methodist Church, stay in the United Methodist Church, please. But if you're not happy in the United Methodist Church and there is no disaffiliation option in your annual conference, then the two things I've said to do are start organizing and collaborating with other churches that do not want to be in the United Methodist Church anymore. And then two, what I've said is rather than walk away from your building, if you just get clear you don't want to be there anymore, you're prepared to walk away from the building. Well, if all of you are willing to stand together, then don't just walk away. Do your best to just actually leave, take the building and the assets, put the conference in the position of suing you, and then liquidate the assets, just defending yourselves in court rather than just handing it over to the denomination. I think that that's a faithful way to put conferences on the defense. I think a lot of conferences will not want the optics of suing local congregations that want to leave. And then if they do that, then I will cover you. I plan on continuing to talk about these stories of the United Methodist Church behaving badly. I think that people need to see what they're doing and hear what they're saying. And so if your church decides to act boldly, then I guarantee you I will want to cover you and talk about what's going on. So for those of you who think it might be good to talk to me, then you can contact me at this email address, plainspokenpod@gmail.com. And then you can follow me in different places. I'll promote myself somewhere else, but I just wanted to go ahead and put this out. People in the U.S. are leaving. Churches in the U.S. continue to leave. Abroad, there are many conferences leaving. I think Liberia is probably going to leave. There are many other annual and central conferences that are just done, and they're going to walk away if they can legally. I know for a fact that what Nigeria has said is they are staying United Methodist until they're sure that they're legally covered. And then I think the hearts of their leadership, at least, are with the GMC. I'm sure the hearts of the rest of them are against the UMC. I don't know how much they are for the GMC. So a lot of this is going to get revealed in the next few months. If you haven't already, you might subscribe to me on Plain Spoken, because I'm going to continue to cover this stuff, and I'll do my best to have those kind of conversations with people on the ground to make sure that what I say is accurate and that we can kind of navigate between these things. And I hope, me saying like this resolution put out by the conference in Nigeria actually is not legitimate. Like that goes against the conservative traditionalist side. But just because I'm on a side doesn't mean that I'm going to turn a blind eye to dishonesty or misspeaking. So anyway, if you think I'm a trustworthy person, you might go ahead and subscribe to me wherever you are and recommend me to other people, maybe in your church or abroad that you think would benefit from having this sort of stuff. So anyway, I'm going to go take care of my kids. I'll be at least doing the live stream this Friday at 4 p.m. Central Time if you want to join me there. And that's where I'll take a lot of questions and have some back and forth with the audience. So you might consider joining me then.